Welcome to The Commute, a Bible study podcast designed to turn your commute into an opportunity to grow in your faith. Whether you're sure of what you believe or you're not sure what to believe, this podcast is designed to help you better understand who Jesus is, what the Bible's all about, and how that applies to your life today. I'm your host, Pastor Matt, and I'm excited to dive into this week's episode of The Commute.
Friends, welcome back to another week of The Commute. It is Pastor Casey here. Pastor Matt is still on vacation, but I am thrilled not to be flying solo again this week. We have back with us John Davis. Thanks for being here, John.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
We are this week going to unpack for you a little bit of background and content of 1 Peter. We are in that letter this week as part of reading through the New Testament. And it is a short letter, but even in such a short letter, there is a lot of good stuff packed in there. So we'll kick it off with a little bit of background here. So from the name of the letter, we can probably gather who wrote this letter. John, would you tell us a little bit about this guy?
Yeah, so it was written by John. No, I'm just kidding. It was written by Peter. And Peter was one of Jesus's, he was in Jesus's kind of inner circle of disciples even. That some would call that. He was really close, and he is one of those apostles that was sent out to start these churches. He was kind of sent out. We kind of think of Paul as sent out to more the Gentiles, the non Jewish people, and Peter kind of talked with a lot of the Jewish people. But in this letter, we kind of see a little bit of a difference. Peter is kind of talking more in this letter to the Gentile people. And if you want to talk a little bit more about kind of why he would be doing that and what's going on in this.
Yeah, so we know from the introduction of 1 Peter, so this is 1 Peter 1, the first few verses, that Peter is writing to the elect exiles of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. So Peter, man, we do so much Paul that I just slipped into it there. Peter is writing to Gentiles who have been scattered through Asia Minor, most specifically. That's where all of these places are. Yeah. And the intention, best we can tell, is that Peter is rallying the Gentiles together and showing them how they have been incorporated into the people of God. So as we go through some of the content later, it'll become clear that Peter is showing them that, hey, even though you may not have the history, even though you may not have the lineage, you, because of what Jesus has done, have been brought into the people of God and share in all of the promises and blessings that the people of God have enjoyed for a long time. So that is kind of the who and the why. There's also something interesting to note about where this is written. And John, why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Peter.
Man, it is so easy.
It's gonna do this to me this whole time.
Peter.
So Peter is. How he describes he's writing this from is he's writing from Babylon.
This is all the way in chapter 5.
Yes, it's toward the end of the letter, where he also talks about a character named Sylvanus or however you want to say it, who's helping him write this letter from Babylon. Which, if you're kind of up on your history of the old times, it's not really a place at this time. So it's like, how is he writing from Babylon? And this is another way that Peter is kind of helping to make that connection between the Gentiles who aren't in that original, family of Abraham and of that original promise, because he's writing this from Rome, which is that place of exile right now. It's a kingdom that is not ruled by ruled in parentheses, because we know that God is the ruler of all the earth, but it's ruled by an emperor, and the people are under the control of people who aren't as open to their faith as they would like. And he's showing them that, hey, just like the Israelites were in exile and under the rule in Babylon, that's the place I'm writing to you from right now, because you're going through that in this empire that you find yourself living now. So it's just another cool connection that Peter makes very, very wisely, I think, because I think a lot of times we can all find ourselves, a little out of the group when you come in. I know that me, myself, and you, Casey, we are not from New Jersey. I'm probably from actually probably both of us are probably from some of the most opposite places of New Jersey. You from Wisconsin, me from Texas, and there's a lot that goes into trying to be a part of a new group of people, and any type of acceptance from the outside the group of people you're coming into, in any way they can kind of say, hey, you're a part of us, is always appreciated.
Yeah, and imagine here, you are feeling like a bit of an outsider. Whether you are one or not is open for debate. Mm-hmm. But imagine you're feeling like an outsider. How would it feel if somebody who is like the insider of insiders is talking to you and saying, "Come on in"? Mm-hmm. That's what you have here in Peter addressing these Gentiles. Like, this is the guy who is in the center. Like, this is one of Jesus' main men here, and this is the guy that all of the people on the inside are looking up to. And now this guy is the one who is essentially extending his hand to the outsiders and saying, "Come on in." Yeah. That's what this letter is. And it's a pretty powerful and beautiful letter, and throughout it, there's a whole bunch of rich imagery that harkens back to Israel's specific history, and it is reframed to bring even more people into that picture. And I think it's beautiful for us today, because we're living as people without, I'm a Gentile, and now I guess the world I've lived in has been a world where we don't really give too much second thought to the Gentiles being incorporated in, because we know all sorts of Gentiles who believe in Jesus. But this would have been a big deal 2,000 years ago, and we are still the recipients of this monumental shift. Right,
yeah. So like Casey said, there's going to be a lot of things, and we might not talk about all of them in this short little time that we have to talk. But I encourage you guys, as you're reading through 1 Peter, to see what kind of things you can see that harken back to maybe some Old Testament stuff. Whether you've read through the Old Testament or not, maybe when you read it, you'll be like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, maybe it's that will kind of encourage you to maybe find that section in the Old Testament to see what Peter's talking about. So I think it's a great book to kind of read through, as, like you said, whether you are an outsider or not is always up for debate. But if you're feeling that way, like, man, I just feel like maybe I don't belong. Well, there was a group of people that kind of felt that way, and this is who he was writing to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great thoughts. Well, let's dive into a few specifics here, John. After Peter finishes the introduction in chapter 1, he says some really, really cool words starting in verse 3. So if you're able to follow along, this is 1 Peter 1, starting at verse 3. It says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time." I mean, really, we could spend an hour,
Yeah.
I think, just on those couple verses. But I love that it all centers around the resurrection of Jesus, and because Jesus lives, the hope that you have is not a dead hope. It's not a stagnant hope. It is a living hope, or a hope that lives. That's something that I need to hear. I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, and I think to put it into the context of the time, and even for us now, like you were saying, that a lot of these people were thinking, hey, I wasn't called, by God through the family of Abraham. Like, how do I fit into this? And I love that the first thing that Peter says, the very first thing is, he's caused us to be born again, not through a promise that was thousands of years ago, that he caused us all. He instantly breaks down the wall of Jews and Gentiles, and he instantly puts them together, and it's like we're all called by Jesus and his death and resurrection, not by something else. That this is what we've been born again into, this new big giant family that we can all be a part of together. And for me personally, yeah, I need to hear that like a lot of times, because even in the Christian world, we have countless denominations and countless groups of Christians that maybe differ on a teaching here or differ on a teaching here, and sometimes it's just really good to see, man, we're really all just one. We're one big family, all called under Jesus and his death and resurrection, and that's our main thing that we all have in common. And I think that's such an important thing to remember, instead of remembering maybe things that we're different in.
Totally. And that even just brought to my mind like the simplicity of declaring what it means to be a Christian. Like if someone ever were to ask, like, what sets you apart as a Christian, or even just what makes a Christian?
Yeah.
I'm someone who believed Jesus rose from the dead. That's it, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Like the resurrection is the key to Christianity. Without the resurrection, I mean, this is Paul in 1 Corinthians 15. Without the resurrection, you're still in your sins, and your faith is futile. But with the resurrection, as you said, got this brand new family, got this whole new hope, faith.
Living hope. Yeah, I love how he calls it that, born into a living hope that is not just something that is a hope that like we look forward to, that's like far off in the past or far off in the future, which we do have an amazing hope that we're looking forward to with life eternal, but it's living, it's here now, that we have hope every single day because of that resurrection, that it's something we just live in every day.
So now, having all been incorporated by Jesus' resurrection, there are some other really cool pieces that are worth highlighting here. So some of them, we mentioned earlier in this episode that there's some Old Testament imagery that kind of gets reframed here, and I think a really clear example of that comes in chapter 2, where Peter is talking about God's people being built together into a spiritual house. So picture something like the temple here. All right, this is 1 Peter 2, starting at verse 4. As you come to him, a living stone rejected by men, but in the sight of God, chosen and precious, you yourselves, like living stones, there again is that adjective, living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. And then you can fast forward a little bit in the chapter to verse 9, and there I go again, man. Peter says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." beautiful pictures, and think of this, like images of a chosen race. Who was the chosen race? It was Israel. God tells Israel again and again that he chose them. Think about the priesthood. The priests are important as people who mediate between God and his people, offering sacrifices. A holy nation. Israel was the holy nation, the one that was set apart from the rest of the nations. Peter is saying that, like, because of what Jesus has done, all of you who've been scattered across the Roman Empire here, you are those people.
Yeah, I think he's saying that right away. He's like, you are now the chosen race, the chosen people. That it's, once again, it's not a them and us. It's a we. We're all this new chosen family under the resurrection. That before it was a chosen family under that original covenant with Abraham that God made with those people. But now there's this new covenant under that resurrection of Jesus that there's no us and them anymore. It's a we, and we are all kind of on equal footing now, and that might be hard. There's a whole other conversation about what that entails for both groups of people, but he tries to put it as simply as possible, that hey, we're all in this together. And I love the idea when he calls them, like, when he brings them into like that priesthood of, because like you said, those priests were those representatives from God to the people, and basically saying now, hey, you're all my representatives. There's not a certain group of people that they're allowed to do things that you're not to do, in terms of their relationship with God. Like, you all are those representatives, and almost like I'm counting on you to be those representatives, because there's a lot of other people that still don't know that they're part of this family and they're welcomed into this family. So I think it's just a beautiful way to bring the old into the new, in terms of the Old Testament into the New Testament, and the Old Covenant into the New Covenant, and just bring it all into one big family. I just love it.
Yeah, it's a really neat picture, and I hope you see it as an encouragement to recognize that, well, if you're someone who is a Christian, that like, hey, because of what Jesus has done for you, you are fully in, and you are actually called now to be God's representative, to be one of those priests, whether you feel equipped or not, whether you believe you're equipped or not. Because of what Jesus has done for you, you are equipped.
Yeah.
That is just who he has made you to be. But I also think it's a helpful encouragement for us to see, oh, wait a minute, like, if I was the kind of person that once didn't receive mercy but now have received mercy, there are so many other people who are in that boat right now, and it is our calling to live in this world as people who proclaim the excellencies of him who called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. And it is, and proclaiming those excellencies really can be as simple as saying, well, Jesus is raised from the dead, and I believe he's going to raise me too. So, I mean, really, there are so many more conversations we could have about evangelism and mission and things like that, because of what comes out of 1 Peter. But I think because of our time running just a little bit short today, we'll probably have to wrap it up there. But any last thoughts you'd like to share, John?
Yeah, I just think, to kind of sum up what I kind of think of when I read through this book, is just that idea that not just are we all one, a family together, but we're one in that family with Jesus, that through baptism and through Jesus' death and resurrection, that we go through those things together with Jesus, that we're joined in that suffering together. A couple weeks ago, we talked about in 2 Corinthians the whole idea of weakness and going through struggles and hard times and being able to boast in it. Well, this is how we're able to do that, because we go through it not alone. We go through it with this family that God has placed us in under his son, Jesus, and his death and resurrection, that we're joined in it together. You don't go through it alone. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about as I read through this book. So
well said, and good thoughts to leave on. So friends, thanks for joining us this week. John, thank you for being with us this week too. We appreciate you big time. And friends, keep reading, and we will join you next week right here on The Commute.
Thanks for checking out this episode of The Commute. For more information on The Commute or to join the Commute Bible reading plan, simply download the Bethlehem Church Live mobile app or go to bethlehemchurchlive.com/thecommute.